In this video, we have a massive haul of some truly special and awesome books. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
So all of the slabs featured in this video are available for sale at bryscomics.com. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off all in-stock items. So these collections is actually 3 collections that came in right about the same time, and I'm short on time these days, so I figured I'm just going to lump them all in to one video. So there was one collection worth about $14,000, one collection that I paid about $14,000, and another one about $1,300 or something like that. So a total around $30,000 for all of these, with the exception of one big book that I had to take out and find a different workaround for, which I'm going to do a very interesting video on later this week. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. In so doing, it will enter you to win our monthly YouTube drawing here. We're giving away a 10-cent Detective Comics this month, 2 copies in fact, because if you head over to bryscomics.com, we have a separate Detective Comics 10 center that we're giving away over there. All you have to do is subscribe to the newsletter. Every month you stay subscribed, you're entered to win a free slab. That's where I send out first notices of new inventory, mystery boxes, all kinds of awesome stuff at the newsletter at bryscomics.com. Funny story about one of these collections, the one that I paid $14,000 for. When the books came in, I went to check in the books because I always, check them in and make sure that everything that we agreed upon was there when they actually arrived. There's no issues or anything. And I'm looking at this one book and I see that I valued it at $1,000 and it was a 9.2, and it was this Iron Man variant. And I remember pricing this when I priced it at a 9.8 for $1,000. I thought, wow, this book's worth $1,000, but there's plenty of sales history to justify it. And when I'm looking at the book, I'm like, oh no, it's not a 9.8, it's a 9.2. So I valued it at $1,000. It's probably worth more around $300. So I go to message the seller and I'm like, hey man, I'm really sorry. I made a mistake. I valued this book at a 9.8. It's a difference of about $1,000. So it's really a 9.2. And I get to the end of the message and I'm like, you know what? This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good at all. I told him and we agreed upon $14,000. And now after I get the books, I'm going to send him a message and back out and say I have to short you $700 because I made a mistake. It wasn't his fault that I, miscalculated and quoted him the wrong number. And so I go to the message and I go delete, and I backspace the whole thing. And I'm like, hey man, I just realized, I made a mistake. I priced it at a 9.8. It's really a 9.2. It's this difference about $700, but I'm going to go ahead and honor the $14,000 that I told you. Maybe you can brag to your friends that you sold this book in a 9.2 for $1,000. It definitely stings a little when I'm looking at this book. I'm like, oh my God, I took a big L on this. At the end of the day, I knew that he was in a tight spot for money. And what if he had already made arrangements or something based off the price that I promised him? So at the end of the day, it was just the right thing to do. So with that said, let's jump into these books.
All right, so I want to start here with some books that are sentimental. They came from a sentimental collection, and anytime you can add, sentiment to these awesome comic books, it truly does add value to the book. So these books came from my buddy Jason. Jason's uncle passed away. His uncle was an avid comic book collector that kept immaculately kept collection, really good care for his books, and he passed away. Jason inherited the comics. There was a ton of super high grade, really cool comic books, and Jason is in a situation where he wants to get some of them graded. He wants to consolidate it a little bit, keep the ones that are truly really special to him, and use the rest to fund the hobby and consolidate into bigger books, things of that nature. So he didn't have any funds to get the books graded. So I said, why don't you send me some of the really high grade books? We can get them, I'll press and clean them, send them in for grading. I'll just, charge you basically 10% or whatever. I won't charge you for the pressing or anything like that, just to get the ball rolling on getting you some funds so that you can do what you want with the rest of the collection, get them graded, things of that nature. So these are the first 3 books to come back. They all came back 9.8 white pages, which goes to show you how this collection was kept, right? The reverence that these collectors Jason's uncle, then on to Jason, then on to me. You know, all three of our reverence for these comics resulted in these books from the 1970s and the 1980s retaining 9.8 white pages. Just truly remarkable. This one actually just sold this morning, but it's always cool to have a personal touch when you buy comic books. All right, so this one also has sentimental value. This came from my buddy Dustin Flores, who stopped by the shop yesterday. This was his childhood copy that he bought and preserved all these years. 9.6 white pages for the first appearance of Gambit, depending on, you know, what side of the argument you're on for that. But he kept it all of these years. He bought it when he was a kid. He's in his 40s now, and it retained a 9.6 white pages for a square-bound book that's incredibly, notoriously difficult to get because of the edges and it being an overhang, the cover slightly longer than the interior pages, and so its bends are just like almost inevitable with this book. So it's truly remarkable that it retained the 9.6. All right, so now we're getting into the collection that I paid $14,000 for. And there may be kind of mixed around in this whole thing, but here's Wolverine number 145. This is the Return of Wolverine's Adamantium, and it's also the Nabisco variant cover. So this was a mail away through Nabisco. Incredibly difficult to get in high grade because of the all black cover, plus it was mail order from the 90s. So it's signed on the cover here by Bill Sienkiewicz, who, I mean, check out this Bill Sienkiewicz art. I mean, look at that back cover. Good Lord, that is some awesome Bill Sienkiewicz art. And this is his original signature, which was like this little squiggly version here, which he changed up later on. So it was signed, you know, early on. Unfortunately, it wasn't witnessed by CGC, so it got the qualified grade for that. Venom number 3, first appearance of Knoll, signed by Donny Cates. The 1 in 25 for Venom number 3, signed by Donny Cates. And the third print for Venom number 3, signed by Donny Cates. Awesome trifecta there of the Knoll books. Hulk number 1, the first appearance of the Red Hulk in a 9.8. Hulk number 1, this is the Wizard World Los Angeles 2008 exclusive for the first appearance of the Red Hulk. Tough book to find. Age of Ultron number 3, I believe this is a 1 in 50 by Eniac Lee. Just a super rare book, awesome cover. And Amazing Spider-Man number 4, the first appearance of Cindy Moon as Silk. I looked inside this book the other day. Good God, is this a cool interior story of this? I read it, you know, in person just the other day. And she is such an awesome character with such awesome art, double signed by Humberto Ramos and Dan Slott. Next up, we got the Spawn Thank You Edition. This is an ASM 300 homage by Todd McFarlane. This was a 1 per store given out to shops back in 2017, and I just love this art. On the inside of this book is pinups and, you know, cool cover art and stuff over the years for Spawn, and they were just thanking the retailers for all their support over all these years. I have half a mind to keep some of these because there's 2 of these that came in this collection, to use these as like thank you gifts to people I buy collections from. I think that would be a really cool thing, but it's kind of tricky because what if they're not a Spawn fan, and what if they were trying to get rid of comics, not acquire more? So I don't know, but really cool books. I've always loved that one. Saga number 1 in a 9.8. All New Wolverine number 2, the first appearance of Gabby in a 9.8, and All New Wolverine number 2, the second print, which is really hard to find. Here's that other copy of Spawn Thank You. So I actually have 3 copies of this now in the shop. All New Wolverine number 2, this is the 1 in 25 David Lopez incentive for the first appearance of Gabby. How about 3 copies of Strange Academy number 1? Awesome book that has done really well despite, you know, everything going on in the market. Totally Awesome Hulk number 22, signed by Greg Pak. This is the first full appearance of Weapon H. And then we have the second print signed by Greg Pak. Darth Vader number 3, this is signed, it says name written on cover and marker. Again, if it's not witnessed by CGC, they don't certify it as, you know, a guaranteed signature, but this one does have a COA that it was signed by Kieran Gillen for the first appearance of Dr. Aphra. Kanan number 6 in a 9.8, and Kanan the Last Padawan number 1 in a 9.8. This was from Dustin, my buddy Dustin as well, who came yesterday. I traded him 2 books he was looking for. He preferred raw books. So freaking weird that I had the 2 books that were still on his list, and I had them raw. They were in my CGC box, the to be graded box. It was an ASM 300 newsstand and a Silk ASM number 4, the J. Scott Campbell variant, color variant for Silk, super pricey variant for that, and I had both of them raw. So we traded for this Ultimate Fallout 4 second print, first appearance of Miles Morales, signed by Clayton Crane in blue and red. Really awesome signature series there. Here's X-Men number 1, the J. Scott Campbell negative variant for Rogue, signed by J. Scott Campbell with the custom label. Sentry number 1, the first appearance of Sentry. Nyx number 3, the first appearance of X23 in a 9.4. I have 4 copies of Nyx number 3 in the shop right now, more than I've ever even seen in my life, and all of a sudden, all at once, there's 4 copies in the shop. Vengeance number 1, 9.6, first appearance of America Chavez, the 1 in 25 Mike Deodato cover. What an awesome key. I would consider keeping it if it was a 9.8 because I'm a huge fan of America Chavez. I thought she killed it in that movie. That book has absolutely plummeted. So here we have Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel number 1 in a 6.5 because, I don't know if you can see right here, there's a huge scratch on the book, plus, you know, spine ticks and all kinds of other stuff going on with this book. So it's every bit of a 6.5 for that one. Squadron Supreme, the cover that inspired my Vanish number 1 exclusive by Raphael Albuquerque. ASM 569 second print, signed by JRJR, and an 8.0 custom label. Teen Titans 12, the first full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. How about 2 copies for good measure? Inferno number 1, absolutely incredible Adi Granov cover. Super sick cover there, featuring magic. All right, so here's Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel number 5 in a 9.8. How about number 4 in a 9.8? Number 3, 9.8. Number 2, 9.8. Are we gonna get it? Are we gonna get the whole set in 9.8? Bam, baby, yes we did. 9.8 white. Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel 1 through 5 in 9.8. First appearance of the Blue Marvel, Adam Brasher and Anti-Man in Connor Sims. Submariner number 1, signed by Roy Thomas. Awesome signature series book there. Okay, here we go, guys. Wolverine number 1, 9.8, white pages, newsstand. What a book. What a book for a not rare book. Awesome key, must have for any Wolverine collector. Throw the newsstand on there, make it rare. Hey, how about even more rare than the newsstand? Slap a Chris Claremont signature on that, baby. 9.8 white pages, newsstand, signature series. Bam! That's almost as good as it gets for this book. The only thing that would make it better is if it had 5 signatures, including Stan Lee. But hey, we got one, and you'd be a fool to crack this thing and get more signatures on it. It's such a gem as is. Just take the win on this one. Gambit number 1, the gold foil edition, 9.8. This book is like actually hard to get in 9.8, hard to find. It's a super cool book, and here's why. All black back cover. How about another Gambit key? Uncanny X-Men 266, 9.8 white pages. First full appearance of Gambit according to this, but I just like it because he's wearing a thong. So there we go. Double signed, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. I don't know what they were thinking with the costume design on that. Here's another copy of Nyx number 3, 9.8. What a cover. Mike Mayhew, X23 number 2, Vampire Variant Edition, signed by Mike Mayhew in red. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. 9.2, so here's that book. I paid $1,000 for this book. Awesome, awesome cover. It is what it is. Invincible Iron Man 512 Venom variant cover. Thunderbolts number 110, the variant edition. And Amazing Spider-Man number 569, signed by Humberto Ramos and Dan Slott. This is the second print that's super hard to find, super hard to get in 9.8, and this is where Eddie Brock becomes Anti-Venom. For the Venom fan, this would be a huge feather in your cap to have the double-signed version. Here's just a few of the books that came from my buddy Dustin. Venom Lethal Protector #4, custom label, signed by Mark Bagley. Superior Iron Man #1. He's a big Alex Ross fan. I mean, who isn't? But this is the color version. I believe it's like a 1 in 75. And then here's the sketch version, which is a 1 in 200, signed by Alex Ross. Low census population for this book, and it's signed, which makes that really cool. King in Black, Gwenom vs. Carnage #2, the J. Scott Campbell variant, signed by J. Scott Campbell. Spawn #8, signed by the Todd father. So these are just some of the books that came from the other $14,000 collection. Ultimate Fallout #4, first print, custom label. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic #9, first full appearance of Revan 9-0 White. Avengers #1, origin and first appearance of the Avengers. I don't care how many times you see this book in person, every time you see it, it stops you in your tracks. This is just such a cool piece of comic book history, like old school Thor, old school Hulk, gold version of Iron Man, old school Loki. It's just such an incredible book. I was able to do a successful trade for this, so this one will be out the door as soon as the trade books come in. There's another one. How about another Nyx 3, first appearance of X-23 in a 9.8. And Uncanny Avengers #1. This is the Adi Granov. I believe it's a 1 in 50. Just super hard to find, super saucy Adi Granov variant cover. Now, I'm going to have to cut this video, I guess, short, even though we're going long, because there's tons of other slabs that came in. Another collection just walked in the door, and I have to get this other video up about the X-Men one that's going to be super interesting, and I'm just short on time. There's so much that I want to do, so many other videos I want to make and edit and do, so I'm going to have to cut it off here. Tons of other stuff available now at brycecomics.com. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off. I started this video by talking about some of the sentimental comics, and as I was editing the video, I realized that all of the comics in this video are sentimental. The other collection, the entire collection, definitely had a whole bunch of sentimental value. The seller of that one didn't necessarily want to sell his collection, but life happens sometimes. Things came up, and sometimes you just really need the money. And I hope that that never happens to anybody watching this video. I hope you never have to sell your comics if you don't want to, but it does happen often where you look around, life happens, and you go, well, I do have $15,000 worth of comics sitting right there. And sometimes there's a liquidity issue. So, I'm honored that I'm in a position to be able to offer this service to the community. At the end of the day, this is a business. It has to be profitable. It's how I support my family. It wouldn't work if it wasn't profitable. So it doesn't always work out to buy collections, but when it does, I hope that it's some consolation to add a personal touch to the whole experience. So often with comic books selling, that's very impersonal, especially like on eBay. eBay just has this really gross feeling behind it. It's like two people that are trying to get the best deal out of each other, and I just always had this bad, vibe from eBay sales. Sometimes you'll get really good sellers, and sometimes, you can establish connections on eBay, but it's very difficult to establish a personal collection. So I hope that it's some consolation that, when these collections do come in, they come through my shop, there's a personal touch added. I make a YouTube video. Thousands of people get to watch that video and admire your collection. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe it's like not that big of a deal, but to me, it is a big deal to me to add the sentimentality to comic books. This hobby is so much more rewarding when you add the personal touch to it. That's why I'm such a big fan of Instagram. That's why I'm such a big fan of having comic book friends, people that, get it, people that totally understand the sometimes insanity that we have, like, and can appreciate, a one of one or a super rare second print that's double signed.
is a lot of people out there that would not understand that and think we're crazy, but the comic community is full of people that totally get it. And so it's so much more rewarding when you make these connections, and it doesn't always work out, but when it does, I hope that that's some kind of consolation, if you had to move some books and you didn't really want to. Don't forget, we're giving away 2 10-cent detective comics this month. If you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, you're entered to win one. And if you sign up for the newsletter at bricecomics.com, you're entered to win the other 10-cent detective comics. Thank you so much, as always, for sticking with me to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.